The alarm screamed through the imperial palace like a wounded animal. Emperor Thralvex felt his 3 hearts hammering in his chest as he gripped the arms of his throne. The metal bent slightly under his clawed fingers. He had ruled the Kelvin Galactic Empire for 30 cycles, survived 2 assassination attempts, and crushed 4 rebellions. But nothing had ever made him feel this kind of fear. "Say that again," he demanded, his voice tight. High Commander Vorn stood at attention, his scales pale with stress. "Your Majesty, the Vorithix has escaped containment. It breached the holding cell approximately 1 hour ago. We lost contact with the guards stationed there." "Lost contact," the Emperor repeated flatly. "You mean they are dead?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Vorn's tail twitched, a sign of deep anxiety in his species. All 12 guards. Security footage shows the creature tore through reinforced steel like paper. "We sent a containment team of 20 elite soldiers, and 19 are dead. 1 is in critical condition in the medical wing. He will not survive the night." The Emperor stood from his throne and walked to the massive window overlooking his capital city. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived in the gleaming towers below. All of them trusted him to keep them safe. And now a Vorithix roamed free in his own palace. Vorithix. Even the name made most species tremble. They were apex predators from the dead world of Vorax 9, a planet so hostile that evolution had created the perfect killing machine, as large as a ground transport vehicle, armored in black plates harder than ship hulls with 6 legs that could propel them at terrifying speeds. Their jaws could crush bone and metal alike. Their claws could slice through concrete. But the worst part was not their physical attributes. It was the psychic presence they projected. Every sentient species in the galaxy had some level of psychic sensitivity. It was how civilizations had learned to communicate across the language barrier in the early days of space travel. And a Vorithix's psychic signature broadcast pure primal terror. To be near one was to feel the certain knowledge of death crawling up your spine. The Empire had tried for decades to tame them, to use them as war beasts. Every attempt had failed. The creatures could not be trained, could not be controlled, could barely be contained. The Imperial War Beast program had lost hundreds of handlers over the years. "Where is it now?" the Emperor asked. "Lower mechanical sector, level 94. The creature has barricaded itself in one of the maintenance chambers. We have sealed all exits from that section." Vorn pulled up a holographic map. "We are preparing to vent the atmosphere from that entire level." "It will suffocate. How long will that take?" 6 hours, Your Majesty. We need time to evacuate our own personnel and ensure the seals hold." The Emperor nodded slowly. 6 hours. 6 hours with a Vorithix loose in his palace. He looked at the blinking red dot on the map that represented the creature. Then his eyes caught another marker, a blue dot, very close to the red one. "What is that blue indicator?" Vorn looked at the map and his scales went even paler. "That is a life sign, Your Majesty." "Whose?" The commander tapped a few commands. "Checking now. It appears to be a human?" "A human. What is a human doing in the restricted mechanical sector?" "Let me verify, Your Majesty." Vorn sent a quick message on his communicator. The response came back within seconds. "The human is a maintenance technician named Daejung. He is crew from the trade vessel Stellar Drift, currently docked for repairs. He was assigned to repair a coolant system failure in that sector. It seems the lockdown protocols did not reach him in time." The Emperor stared at the 2 dots on the map so close together. Humans. He knew of them, of course, a relatively new species to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 standard years ago. They were strange creatures, soft-skinned, no natural weapons, no scales or armor, no psychic abilities to speak of. They came from a death world called Earth, but they hardly seemed like warriors. They were traders, diplomats, explorers, friendly to a fault. And now one of them was about to die in his palace. Can we contact him? Warn him? "We are trying, Your Majesty. His communication device is not responding. He may have it switched off to focus on his work." "Then send a team to extract him. Immediately." "Your Majesty, the Vorithix is between our nearest access point and the human's location. Any team we send will be killed before they reach him." The Emperor's claws scraped against the window. "So we do nothing? We just watch him die? We can observe through security cameras, Your Majesty. Perhaps..." Vorn hesitated. "Perhaps we can time our extraction. If the Vorithix moves away from the human's position, we could have a team ready." It was a slim hope, but it was something. The Emperor returned to his throne. "Show me the security feed now." The holographic display shifted, showing a dark maintenance chamber. The vortex filled most of the frame, its massive body coiled in the shadows. The Emperor could see the creature's breathing, the slight movement of its armored plates. It was waiting, hunting. And then, in the edge of the frame, the Emperor saw movement. The human Daejung was having a bad day, but he had dealt with worse. The coolant line had been more damaged than the initial report suggested. He had been working for 3 hours, and his back hurt from crouching in the tight space. His uniform was soaked with sweat. The mechanical sector was always too hot. He sat back and pulled out his water bottle, taking a long drink. His music player sat next to his toolbox, playing some old earth rock music through his earpiece. He had one earpiece in, one out. Company policy said he needed to stay alert for emergency announcements, but honestly, nothing ever happened on these routine repairs. He stood up and stretched, his spine popping. The coolant system was finally fixed. He could pack up his tools and get back to the ship. Maybe grab some of that weird purple noodle stuff from the station market. Ji-won had said it was actually pretty good if you added enough hot sauce. Daejung bent down to close his toolbox when he noticed something odd. The temperature in the room had dropped. Not much, but enough to notice. He looked around the dimly lit chamber, frowning. Had the climate control kicked in? Then he saw the shadow. It was massive, darker than the surrounding darkness. Daejung froze, his hand still on the toolbox. The shadow moved and he heard a sound like metal scraping against metal. No, not metal. Something organic making that sound. He slowly turned his head. The creature was enormous. That was his first thought. His second thought was that it looked like someone had taken a tiger, made it the size of a bus, covered it in black armor, and added 2 extra sets of legs. Its eyes glowed with a faint red light. Dozens of teeth, each as long as his hand, lined its jaws. Daejung's mind went completely blank for a moment. Then somehow his brain started working again. He did not scream. Growing up on Earth, his family had always had dogs, big dogs, and the first rule of dealing with big animals was simple. Do not show fear. Do not run. Stay calm. Hey there, big guy, Daejung said quietly, his voice surprisingly steady. You lost? In the Imperial Palace Command Center, Emperor Thralvex watched the security feed in complete silence. His entire court had gathered around, all of them staring at the impossible scene. The human was talking to the Vorethix. And the Vorethix had not attacked. This is not possible, whispered Vorn. But it was happening. On the screen, the massive predator slowly moved forward. The Emperor expected to see the killing strike. The moment when those terrible jaws closed around the fragile human. Instead, the Vorethix lowered its massive head and pressed it against the human's chest. Daejung, acting on pure instinct, reached up and scratched behind what looked like the creature's ear. Or what passed for an ear. Some kind of armored plate that shifted slightly under his touch. The Vorethix made a sound, a deep rumbling sound that vibrated through the security feed. Is it? Someone in the court began. It is Purring, the Emperor said, his voice hollow with shock. The apex predator is Purring. Daejung had no idea he was being watched by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He was too focused on the massive creature pressing against him. The thing was warm. That surprised him. He had expected the armor plates to be cold like metal, but they radiated heat like a living furnace. You are a big boy, are you not? Daejung said softly, continuing to scratch behind the armored plate. The creature leaned into his touch, making that strange rumbling sound. It reminded him of his grandmother's old cat, Mr. Whiskers, who used to purr so loudly you could hear it from across the room. Of course, Mr. Whiskers had not been the size of a truck. The creature's eyes closed slightly, and Daejung felt some of the tension leave its body. Whatever this thing was, it seemed to like being petted. Daejung had always been good with animals. Dogs, cats, even the neighbor's mean rooster had eventually warmed up to him. His mother used to say he had gentle hands. Where did you come from? Daejung asked, looking around the maintenance chamber. There was no obvious entrance large enough for this creature. Did you get stuck down here? Are you scared? The creature made a softer sound, almost like a whine. Daejung's heart melted a little. Scared. This huge, terrifying beast was scared. He could understand that. Being lost in a strange place was frightening, even if you were big and covered in armor. It is okay, he said, using the same tone he used with nervous animals. You are okay. Nobody is going to hurt you. In the command center, complete chaos had erupted. Officers shouted over each other. Scientists demanded access to the feed. The Emperor sat frozen on his throne, watching the impossible scene unfold. "Your Majesty, we must act," Vorn insisted. "This could be some kind of trap. The human might be controlling the creature somehow." "With what?" snapped Dr. Kessa, the Imperial xenobiologist, who had rushed to the command center the moment she heard the news. "Humans have no psychic abilities. They have no technology capable of controlling a vortex. I have studied these creatures for 20 years. This should not be possible. Yet it is happening," the Emperor said quietly. "Look." On the screen, the human had sat down on the floor, his back against the wall. The vortex circled once, twice, then curled its massive body around the human like a protective barrier. Its enormous head came to rest in the human's lap. Daejung nearly laughed. This was absurd. He was sitting in a maintenance chamber with some kind of alien creature using him as a pillow. The thing's head alone probably weighed as much as he did. He could feel the rumbling purr through his whole body. "Are you someone's pet?" Daejung wondered aloud. "Did you escape from somewhere? Your owners are probably worried about you." He looked at his toolbox, calculating. He should probably report this. There was definitely some kind of dangerous animal loose in the station, but his communicator was in his toolbox and moving would disturb the creature. It seemed calm now. He did not want to startle it. Besides, his shift was technically over. He had fixed the coolant system. Whatever this creature situation was, it was probably a problem for security, not maintenance. Daejung was good at his job, but his job was fixing machines, not dealing with lost animals. He would sit here for a few more minutes, let the creature calm down completely, then slowly get up and call security. Simple plan. The creature shifted slightly, pressing closer against him. Daejung absently ran his hand along its neck, feeling the plates move under his touch. Fascinating. The armor was not solid. It was layered, allowing for movement. Smart design. Nature really was an incredible engineer. "You are actually kind of beautiful," Daejung said, in a terrifying sort of way. Dr. Kessa was frantically typing on her datapad, pulling up every piece of research on vortex behavior ever recorded. Nothing in the literature suggested this was possible. "Vortex are solitary predators," she said, reading her notes aloud. "They show no social behavior. They do not form bonds. They barely tolerate their own young. Their psychic signature broadcasts aggression and fear to ward off competitors. They have killed every handler who attempted to approach them peacefully." "Then explain what we are seeing," Vorn demanded. "I cannot," Dr. Kessa admitted. "This defies every established principle of xenobiology." One of the junior scientists spoke up hesitantly. "Could it be the human? Something specific about their species?" "Humans are not special," Vorn said dismissively. "They are weak, fragile, psychically blind. They should be the perfect prey for a vortex." "Psychically blind," Dr. Kessa repeated slowly. "Wait, that might be it." Everyone turned to look at her. She pulled up a new screen showing brainwave patterns. Vortex project a psychic fear response. Every species in the galaxy feels it when near them. It is their primary hunting tool. The prey animal feels overwhelming terror and freezes or flees, making the kill easier. "Yes, we know this," the Emperor said impatiently. "What is your point?" "Humans have almost no psychic sensitivity. The fear projection would not affect them the same way it affects us." Dr. Kessa's eyes widened as she worked through the implications. To a vortex, the human is the first creature it has ever met that does not respond with terror. The first being that approaches it without fear. "So the creature is confused?" Vorn asked, more than confused. "Think about it. Vortex are born in captivity now. The wild population is extinct. This creature has lived its entire life in containment, with every being it encounters broadcasting fear and aggression. Then suddenly here is a creature that feels no fear, that approaches with curiosity, that offers affection." The command center fell silent as everyone processed this information. "You are saying the vortex is not attacking because it is, what, grateful?" The Emperor's voice was heavy with disbelief. "I am saying we may have fundamentally misunderstood these creatures," Dr. Kessa said. "What if the aggression we have always seen is a response to the fear and hostility they constantly feel from everyone around them? What if they are not mindless killing machines, but intelligent beings driven to violence by eternal isolation?" Daejung's legs were starting to fall asleep. The creature's head was really heavy. He tried to shift slightly and the creature made a grumbling sound that might have been annoyance. Sorry, Daejung said quickly. Just getting comfortable. You can stay. The creature settled again and Daejung sighed. He was definitely going to have to call this in soon. His supervisor would be wondering where he was. And now that he thought about it, the maintenance sector was very quiet. Usually there was some background noise. Machinery, distant voices, something. Now it was silent except for the creature's purring.
Hey, big guy.
Daejung said. Is there something going on? Like an emergency or something? Is that why you are down here? The creature opened one eye and looked at him. Daejung got the distinct impression it was just as confused as he was about this whole situation. Yeah, me too, Daejung said. I have no idea what is happening either. He finally reached over carefully and grabbed his communicator from his toolbox. The creature watched but did not move. Daejung checked the device and frowned. 23 missed calls. 15 emergency alerts. What in the world? He pulled up the most recent message and read it. His blood went cold. Emergency lockdown. Dangerous creature loose in Sector 94. All personnel evacuate immediately. Daejung looked at the creature in his lap. Sector 94. That was this sector. Dangerous creature. He looked at the massive armored many-toothed beast currently using him as a pillow. Oh, Daejung said faintly. You are the dangerous creature. The Vorithix yawned, showing all its terrible teeth, then closed its mouth and continued purring. In the command center, they watched as the human stared at his communicator, then at the Vorithix, then back at his communicator. He just realized, Vorn said. Will he panic? Someone asked. They watched as the human took a deep breath, put down his communicator, and went back to petting the creature. Apparently not, the Emperor said, a note of respect creeping into his voice. He is either the bravest being I have ever seen or the most foolish. Your Majesty, Vorn said carefully. What do we do now? The Emperor stared at the screen. The human sat calmly, scratching behind the Vorithix's armored plates while the most feared predator in the galaxy purred contentedly in his lap. It was the most absurd, impossible, terrifying thing he had ever witnessed, and somehow he knew that everything had just changed. Send a message to the human, the Emperor said finally. Very politely, ask him if he would be willing to come to the throne room. With the creature, we need to understand what is happening here. Your Majesty, allowing a Vorithix into the throne room. It is already in my palace, the Emperor interrupted, and apparently it goes where the human goes. So we invite them both, carefully. Daejung's communicator buzzed with a new message. He read it, then read it again to make sure he understood correctly. An invitation to meet the Emperor, the actual Emperor, with +1. He looked at the creature. Do you want to meet an Emperor? That sounds important. I should probably say yes, right? The Vorithix made a huffing sound that Daejung chose to interpret as agreement. Okay then, Daejung said. Let us go meet an Emperor, but you have to promise to be on your best behavior. No eating anyone. Can you do that? The creature stood up, stretching each of its 6 legs in turn. Then it looked at Daejung expectantly. Daejung gathered his tools, shouldered his toolbox, and started walking toward the exit. The massive predator followed him like an obedient dog. Behind them, security cameras tracked their every move, and an entire empire held its breath. The walk through the Imperial Palace was the strangest experience of Daejung's life. Everywhere he went, people scattered. Guards in full armor pressed themselves against walls. Officials dove into side rooms. A group of well-dressed diplomats actually climbed onto furniture to get away from his path. Daejung found it puzzling. Sure, the creature was big and looked scary, but it was being perfectly calm. It walked beside him like a well-trained pet, occasionally bumping against his leg as if checking he was still there. Once, when Daejung paused to look at a particularly beautiful window showing the city below, the creature sat down and waited patiently. Why is everyone so scared of you? Daejung asked it. You are sweet. The Vorithix made a pleased rumbling sound. The throne room doors opened with a deep, resonating boom. Daejung stepped inside and his jaw dropped. The room was massive, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. Columns of precious metal lined the walls. The floor was polished stone that reflected like a mirror, and at the far end, on a throne that seemed carved from a single piece of crystal, sat Emperor Thralvex. Daejung had seen pictures of the Emperor on news broadcasts, but seeing him in person was different. The Emperor was tall, at least 8 feet, with scales that shimmered between green and gold. His eyes were large and dark with vertical pupils. He wore robes of deep purple that probably cost more than Daejung's entire ship. Around the throne room stood dozens of important-looking people, military officers with medals covering their chests, scientists with complex devices, court officials in elaborate clothing. All of them were staring at Daejung, or more accurately, at the creature beside him. Daejung suddenly felt very underdressed in his maintenance uniform, which still had coolant stains on it. Hello, Daejung said, giving an awkward wave. Your Majesty, I am Daejung. From the stellar drift, I got your message. Sorry about the big guy following me. I could not figure out how to make him stay behind. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. You tried to make it stay? Well, yeah. I thought maybe he should wait outside. But he just followed me. He is very stubborn. Daejung scratched the Vorethix's head. Are you not, big guy? A ripple of shock went through the assembled court. The High Commander stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. Human, do you understand what that creature is? A Vorethix, according to the emergency alert, Daejung said. I looked it up on my datapad during the walk here. The article said they are very dangerous. Apex predators. But honestly, he seems really gentle. Maybe the article is exaggerated. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Dr. Kessa stepped forward. She was a Kelvin like the Emperor, but smaller, with darker scales and kind eyes. May I approach? Daejung shrugged. Sure, he does not mind. Dr. Kessa walked forward slowly, every muscle tense. She held a scanning device in her trembling hands. The Vorethix watched her approach but did not move from Daejung's side. When she was close enough, she passed the scanner over the creature's body. Heart rate is normal, she said, her voice tight. Brain activity shows no signs of stress or aggression. Hormone levels are... This cannot be right. What is wrong? The Emperor demanded. Nothing is wrong. That is the problem. This Vorethix is healthy, uninjured, showing no signs of any drugs or mind control. According to every measurement I can take, it is simply content, the Emperor repeated. The most dangerous predator in the known galaxy is content. Because Daejung is nice to him, Dr. Kessa said, still staring at her scanner in disbelief. That appears to be the only explanation. The Emperor stood from his throne and descended the steps. As he approached, Daejung noticed the Emperor moved carefully as if expecting the Vorethix to attack at any moment. But the creature just yawned and leaned against Daejung's leg. Tell me, human, the Emperor said. What did you do to this creature? What technique did you use? I just petted him, Daejung said uncertainly. Like you would pet a dog. Do you have dogs here? They are earth animals, very friendly. They like being scratched behind the ears. You petted it, the Emperor said slowly. You petted a Vorethix, was I not supposed to? Daejung asked, worried. I am sorry if I broke some rule. I did not know. He just seemed lonely and I thought, lonely, the Emperor interrupted. You thought the apex predator seemed lonely. Well, yeah. Daejung felt defensive now. Look at him. He is all alone down there in the dark. No friends, no family. When he came up to me, he did not seem angry. He seemed sad. Like he wanted company. Dr. Kessa was typing frantically on her data pad. Your Majesty, I need to contact human representatives immediately. This requires extensive study. Already done, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see 3 humans entering the throne room, escorted by nervous guards. 2 women and 1 man, all wearing formal diplomatic clothing. The man stepped forward and bowed to the Emperor. Your Majesty, I am Ambassador Hyunwoo, representing Earth's diplomatic mission. This is Dr. Nari, a xenopsychologist and cultural attaché Yuna. We came as soon as we heard about the incident. How did you hear? Bourne demanded. This was classified. You invited a human civilian to the throne room with a Vorethix, Hyunwoo said diplomatically. Half the palace staff witnessed it. The other half are spreading rumors. We received 17 calls in the last 30 minutes. Nari approached Daejung smiling. She was young, with short hair and glasses that magnified her eyes. Hi, I am Nari. Are you okay? Not hurt? I am fine, Daejung said. A little confused. Everyone is acting like I did something impossible. You did, Nari said gently. She looked at the Vorethix with professional interest. May I? Sure. Nari extended her hand slowly. The Vorethix sniffed it, then allowed her to touch its armor plating. Incredible. Dr. Kessa, do you have a psychic sensor? Dr. Kessa handed one over. Nari held it near the vortex and frowned at the reading. Just as I thought. The fear projection is active but reduced. It is still broadcasting, but at a much lower intensity than recorded levels. What does that mean? The Emperor asked. It means the creature is not trying to scare anyone right now, Nari explained. Vortex projects psychic fear as a hunting tool, correct? But also as a defense mechanism, they push away threats, but around Daijong it does not need to do that. It feels safe. Hyunwoo stepped forward. Your Majesty, with your permission, I would like to share some information that Earth's government has been compiling. We did not think it was significant until now. Proceed. Hyunwoo pulled up a holographic display showing incident reports from various human colonies and ships. Over the past 50 years, we have documented hundreds of encounters between humans and species classified as dangerous predators. In 78% of these encounters, the predators became docile or friendly toward humans. The court erupted in whispers. Vorn stepped forward. That is impossible. You are saying humans can tame any predator? Not tame, Nari corrected. Befriend. There is a difference. Taming implies control and dominance. What humans do is different. We form connections based on mutual respect and affection. But why? Dr. Kessa asked. What makes humans different? Nari gestured to Yuna, who pulled up images of Earth. Humans evolved on a death world like many spacefaring species. But our evolutionary path was unique. We were not apex predators. We were not prey animals either. We were somewhere in between. We hunted, but we were also hunted. This gave us a unique perspective. We learned to understand predators, Yuna continued. We studied their behavior because our survival depended on it. But we also learned something else. We learned to form bonds with other species. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We partnered with horses. We kept cats for pest control. Cooperation across species lines became part of our survival strategy. And the psychic blindness? The Emperor asked. Actually helpful in this case, Nari said. Most species feel the fear projection from a vortex and respond with their own fear or aggression. This creates a feedback loop. The vortex feels threatened and increases its fear projection. The other being becomes more scared and hostile. It escalates. But humans do not feel the psychic projection strongly. We react to what we observe, not what we feel psychically. And what Daijung observed was a creature that seemed lonely, Dr. Kessa said slowly, understanding dawning. Not a monster, just an animal that wanted connection. Daijung had been listening to all of this with growing surprise. Wait, so I'm not special? Any human could do this? Well, you are especially good at it, Nari said with a smile. But yes, generally speaking, humans have a natural ability to connect with creatures that other species find terrifying. The Emperor sat back down on his throne heavily. His mind was racing through implications. If humans could pacify apex predators, what did that mean for galactic security? For warfare? For the balance of power? Your Majesty, Vorn said quietly. This could be a threat. If humans can weaponize dangerous fauna? Or, Hyunwoo interrupted firmly, we could see this as an opportunity. How many species are endangered because they are too dangerous to protect? How many ecosystems are damaged because we cannot safely study the apex predators? How many creatures are killed simply because we fear them? The Emperor looked at the vortex, still pressed against Daejung's side, purring softly. He thought of the hundreds of vortex killed over the years because they were deemed too dangerous to exist. Had they all just needed someone who was not afraid? I need time to think, the Emperor said. Daejung, would you be willing to stay in the palace as our guest? With appropriate compensation, of course. Daejung looked uncertain. I have a job. My ship will be notified and compensated for your absence, the Emperor said. Please, we need to understand this better. And it seems the vortex has decided you are its person now. As if to confirm this, the creature pressed its massive head against Daejung's chest and made a demanding chirp. Okay, Daejung said, scratching behind the creature's ear plate. I guess I am staying. But can someone please bring my friend Ji-won? She is going to love this story. 3 days had passed since Daejung became the palace's most unusual guest. He had been given a large suite normally reserved for visiting dignitaries. The servants had been nervous about entering his rooms at first, given that the vortex refused to leave his side, but they quickly realized the creature was harmless as long as Daejung was around. The creature had also acquired a name. After the third time Daejung called it Big Guy, One of the palace staff suggested the name Obsidian, after the black volcanic glass from Earth. Daejung thought it sounded fancy, but the creature seemed to like it. Or at least it responded when called. What surprised everyone was what happened next. On the second day, a palace worker approached the Emperor's head of security with a problem. They had captured a juvenile Kravik in the gardens. Kraviks were six-legged predators known for their aggressive territorial behavior. This one had injured 3 guards before they managed to trap it in a reinforced cage. Someone suggested, half-joking, that they should ask the human to look at it. Daejung had been reading a book in the palace library when they found him. Obsidian was sprawled across 3 chairs, dozing. The head of security explained the situation carefully, emphasizing that Daejung was under no obligation to help and they would handle it themselves. "You want me to look at an angry animal?" Daejung said. "Sure, why not?" The Kravik was snarling and throwing itself against the cage bars when they arrived. It was about the size of a large dog with razor-sharp claws and a mouthful of needle teeth. Its fur was a dark red color, bristling with anger. Daejung studied it for a moment. "Poor thing. It is terrified." "Terrified?" the security chief repeated. "It is trying to kill everyone." "Because it is scared," Daejung explained patiently. "Look at how it is holding itself. That is defensive aggression, not hunting behavior. Something must have frightened it into the gardens. Now it is trapped and surrounded by strangers. Of course it is lashing out." He approached the cage slowly, ignoring the gasps of alarm from the guards. "Hey there, little one. You are having a bad day, huh?" The Kravik paused its snarling, watching him warily. Daejung sat down on the ground near the cage, making himself smaller and less threatening. He did not look directly at the creature. Instead, he looked slightly to the side, a technique he had learned worked with nervous dogs. "Nobody here wants to hurt you," Daejung said softly. "We just want to help you get back home. But you have to calm down first. Can you do that?" 10 minutes later, the Kravik was eating meat scraps from Daejung's hand through the cage bars. 20 minutes after that, he had it out of the cage and on a leash, leading it calmly back toward the gardens where it could be released. The Emperor watched the security footage in stunned silence. Then he summoned his council. The emergency meeting lasted for 6 hours. High Commander Vorn presented his report with growing unease. "Your Majesty, I have compiled every incident involving humans and dangerous fauna that I could find in our records. The pattern is undeniable." He pulled up case after case. Human colonists on Drexen 4 reported that Deathstalkers, creatures that killed adult Dexari warriors, followed human children around like pets. A human mining operation on Kalos had to chase away void serpents because the creatures kept trying to nest in the human living quarters. Human survey teams in predator-heavy zones consistently reported better survival rates than any other species. There are also these reports, Vorn continued, pulling up classified military documents. 5 years ago, a human merchant was taken hostage by pirates. The pirates kept war beasts in their base for security. Within 2 days, the human had befriended all of them. When rescue forces arrived, the war beasts attacked their own handlers to protect the human. That incident was classified, the Emperor said sharply. "Yes, Your Majesty, because we did not understand it. We thought it was an anomaly. Now we know better." A council member spoke up, an elderly Kelvin with graying scales. "What are you suggesting, Commander? That humans are a threat?" "I am suggesting they are an unknown factor with potentially dangerous capabilities. If humans can pacify any predator, they could potentially weaponize them against us." "That is a significant leap in logic," Ambassador Hyunwoo said. He had been invited to attend the council meeting, along with several other human representatives. "The ability to befriend animals does not equal the desire to weaponize them." "But the capability exists," Vorn insisted. "You cannot deny that." "We do not deny it," said Dr. Nari. "But you are approaching this from the wrong angle. You see humans befriending predators and immediately think of warfare. That says more about your species than ours." The Emperor raised a hand for silence. "Explain." Nari stood and pulled up images of Earth's history. "For most of human history, we fought each other constantly. Wars, conflicts, violence. We were very good at killing each other. But do you know what finally changed? When we started seeing each other as one species instead of separate tribes. When we learned cooperation was better than conflict. We applied that same principle to other species on Earth," Yuna added. "Instead of exterminating predators that threatened our livestock, we found ways to coexist. We created protected areas. We studied their behavior. We learned that most predators only attacked when they were desperate or felt threatened. You are painting a very optimistic picture, Vorn said skeptically. But humans still eat meat. You still hunt. You still kill animals. Yes, Hyunwoo acknowledged. We are not perfect. We have caused extinctions. We have made terrible mistakes. But we learned from them. And the core truth remains. Humans have a deep instinctive capacity for cross-species empathy. We see animals not as objects or resources, but as individuals with their own feelings and needs. Which is why Daijung looked at a Vorethix and saw loneliness instead of danger, Dr. Kessa said thoughtfully. He bypassed all the obvious threat signals and went straight to emotional understanding. The Emperor stood and paced the length of the council chamber. His mind was working through scenarios and possibilities. Finally, he turned back to the assembled group. High Commander Vorn, you are right to be cautious. This capability could be dangerous in the wrong hands. But I think these humans are also right. We have been looking at this situation as a threat when it might be an opportunity. He addressed the human delegation. Ambassador Hyunwoo, I have a proposal. The Empire has struggled for centuries with managing dangerous fauna. We have war beast programs that fail more often than they succeed. We have protected species we cannot safely study. We have ecosystem collapse because removing apex predators has unintended consequences. What if humans could help us solve these problems? Hyunwoo exchanged glances with Nari and Yuna. Your Majesty, what exactly are you proposing? A partnership. Humans would work with our scientists to better understand dangerous creatures, not to weaponize them but to preserve them, to learn how to coexist with them instead of just containing or destroying them. The Interspecies Harmony Initiative, Yuna said suddenly. That is what we should call it. I like that, the Emperor said, but I have one condition. The human Daijung must stay temporarily to demonstrate his techniques. We need to train our own handlers in these methods. That is a reasonable request, Hyunwoo said carefully, but Daejung is a civilian. He would need to agree voluntarily, and he should be properly compensated. Of course, name his price. In his suite, Daejung was lying on a very expensive couch, Obsidian's head resting on his stomach while he tried to explain the situation to Jiwon over a video call.
So basically you pet a space monster and now you are working for the Emperor?
Jiwon said, grinning. Only you, Daejung. Only you. I have not agreed to anything yet, Daejung protested. They just asked if I would stay for a while. Are you going to say yes? Daejung looked down at Obsidian, who was snoring softly. In the corner of the room, the Kravik from earlier was curled up in a bed the servants had brought. Apparently it had refused to leave too. I think I might. These creatures need someone who understands them. Everyone here is so scared of them. But they are not monsters. They are just animals that nobody has tried to understand. You are such a softie, Jiwon said affectionately. Listen, if you are staying, I am coming there. You will need help, and someone has to make sure you remember to eat actual food instead of just feeding treats to space monsters. They are not monsters, Daejung said again, but he was smiling.
But yes, come.
I would like the company. This palace is beautiful but kind of lonely. Later that evening, Ambassador Hyunwoo returned to Daejung's suite with the Emperor's formal offer. Daejung listened carefully, asked a few questions about hazard pay and whether Jiwon could join him, then agreed. There is one thing, though, Daejung said. I am not a warrior or a trainer. I just like animals. If they want me to teach other people, they need to understand it is not about control or dominance. It is about respect and patience. I will make sure they understand, Hyunwoo promised. After the ambassador left, Daejung sat with Obsidian and thought about his grandmother. She had always said he had a gift with animals. They know a kind heart when they see one, she would say. He wondered what she would think of him now, sitting in an alien palace with a creature that could tear him apart with one swipe of its claws, feeling safer than he had ever felt in his life. Outside his windows, the palace lights glittered like stars, and somewhere in the halls, beings from across the galaxy whispered about the human who tamed monsters. But Daejung knew the truth. He had not tamed anything. He had just offered friendship to creatures that had never known it before, and they had accepted. 6 months had changed everything. The Imperial Beast Containment Facility was no longer a place of steel cages and fear. Now it was called the Galactic Wildlife Sanctuary, and its halls echoed with sounds that would have been impossible before. The rumbling purrs of Vorethix, the playful chirps of Kraviks, the gentle hooting of Thornscales, Creatures that had once been considered too dangerous to exist now lived in spacious habitats, cared for by a staff that no longer approached them with terror. Daejung walked through the sanctuary's main corridor, a datapad in one hand and a container of treats in the other. Obsidian walked beside him as always. The massive Vorethix had become something of a mascot for the sanctuary. Young Kelvin children on school tours would squeal with delight when they saw him. And Obsidian seemed to enjoy the attention, posing proudly while Daejung reminded everyone to approach slowly and calmly. "Good morning." "Daejung," called Dr. Kessa from across the hall. She was leading a group of students, showing them how to properly read behavioral signals in predators. 6 months ago, she would have never believed she would be teaching this. Now it was standard curriculum. "Morning, Dr. Kessa," Daejung replied. "How is the new Kravik settling in?" "Wonderfully. She ate breakfast and even played with the enrichment toys you suggested. I think she is going to do very well here." Daejung smiled and continued his rounds. He stopped at a large habitat where 3 Vorethix were lounging in artificial sunlight. A young Kelvin woman named Mira was inside with them, scratching one behind its ear plates while the others dozed. "Looking good, Mira," Daejung called. "Remember to watch their tail positioning." I know, Mira said, laughing. "You have told me 100 times. If the tail goes stiff, step back and give space, because stiff tail means uncertainty or stress. I should give them time to relax before continuing interaction." Mira recited it like a well-practiced lesson. She had been one of the first Kelvans to train under Daejung, and now she was one of the sanctuary's best handlers. Daejung moved on, checking in with each habitat. Jiwon was in the aquatic section, working with a species of predatory fish that most people considered too aggressive to study. She was teaching them to recognize feeding times through pattern training. Beside her, a former military officer named Terran watched and took notes. More and more soldiers from the disbanded War Beast program were coming to the sanctuary, learning a new way to work with creatures they had once only seen as weapons. In the medical wing, Bora was examining a rescued thorn scale. Bora had been a military liaison when she first met Daejung. Now she was studying to become a xenoveterinary specialist. The thorn scale, which would have been euthanized 6 months ago for being too dangerous, was letting her check its scales with gentle patience. "You are doing great," Bora murmured to the creature. "Just a little more and we are done. Then you can have some fruit. Would you like that?" The thorn scale made a trilling sound that meant agreement. Bora smiled. 6 months ago, she would have never imagined herself here, talking to a creature that could kill her with its poison and receiving friendly responses. Everything had changed the day they stopped seeing these creatures as monsters. In the sanctuary's central office, Ambassador Hyunwoo met with Emperor Thralvex. The Emperor had become a regular visitor to the sanctuary, fascinated by the transformation taking place. He no longer wore his formal robes here. Instead, he dressed in simple clothing, watching the handlers work with genuine curiosity. "The results have exceeded all expectations, Your Majesty," Hyunwoo said, pulling up statistics. "Mortality rates among handlers have dropped to 0. The creatures are healthier, living longer, showing complex social behaviors we never knew they had. Several species we thought were solitary have formed family groups. The Vorethix in Habitat 7 are raising young successfully for the first time in captivity." "I saw," the Emperor said quietly. "I watched the young ones playing yesterday. It was beautiful. I had never thought to use that word for Vorethix before." "Language shapes perception," Hyunwoo said. "When we call something a monster, we treat it as a monster. When we call it a creature, an animal, a being with feelings, we treat it differently." The Emperor walked to the window overlooking the sanctuary grounds. Below, he could see Daejung sitting in a field with a group of young handlers, teaching them proper approach techniques. 3 Vorethix and a pair of Kraviks lounged nearby, completely at ease. "I must confess something," the Emperor said. "When I first saw your human with the Vorethix, I was terrified. Not just of the creature, but of what it meant. Humans who could control apex predators seemed like a threat to everything we had built. I considered restricting human travel in the Empire. I even considered worse options, I know," Hyunwoo said gently. "Your High Commander was not subtle about his concerns. But I was wrong. This is not about control. It never was." The Emperor turned to face the Ambassador. "My species evolved as prey animals. We survived by being cautious, by seeing threats everywhere, by building walls and weapons. We reach the stars through fear and determination, but we never learned what your people know instinctively. What is that, Your Majesty? That strength is not always about dominance. Sometimes strength is about offering kindness to something that could destroy you. The Emperor's voice was soft. Daejung should have died that day. Any rational being would have run from a Vorithix. But he sat down and offered friendship. That took more courage than any warrior I have ever known. Hyunwoo nodded. Humans are not fearless, Your Majesty. We are often terrified. But we learned long ago that fear should inform our choices, not control them. Daejung was scared. He just chose to be curious instead of hostile. They watched in comfortable silence as below, a young Vorithix bounded over to Daejung and demanded attention. Daejung laughed and complied, scratching the creature's favorite spots while explaining something to the watching students. There is something else, the Emperor said. I have received requests from 17 other galactic nations. They want to establish similar programs. They want human consultants. Your species is becoming very popular. We have been coordinating with Earth's government, Hyunwoo confirmed. We are sending specialists to help. But we are being careful. This is not about humans taking over animal management across the galaxy. It is about sharing knowledge and working together. The Interspecies Harmony Initiative is expanding faster than anyone predicted. Yes, and it is working because it is not just about animals. It is about changing how we think about coexistence, about seeing value in creatures we once feared, about choosing understanding over destruction. The Emperor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Ambassador, I would like to propose something. A formal alliance between the Kelvin Empire and Earth, with the Sanctuary as its foundation. Not a military alliance, but a partnership focused on preservation and understanding. We have much to learn from your people. Hyunwoo smiled. I think Earth would be very interested in that conversation, Your Majesty. That evening, Daejung was in his quarters, which were no longer in the palace. He had moved to a small house near the sanctuary, where he could be close to the creatures. Obsidian lay sprawled across most of the living room floor, snoring. The Kravik from those first days, now named Rusty for his red fur, was curled up in a basket by the window. Even the razor moths had stayed, building a hive in a special enclosure Daejung had set up for them. Jiwon was in the kitchen, making dinner and grumbling good-naturedly about having to cook for someone who spent half his paycheck on creature treats. You know you are supposed to feed yourself too, right? I feed myself, Daejung protested. Instant noodles do not count. They have vegetables in them. Jiwon threw a towel at him. He caught it, laughing. It felt good, this life. He had never expected to stay this long, but the sanctuary needed him. More importantly, the creatures needed someone who saw them as more than their teeth and claws. His communicator chimed. It was Dr. Kessa. Daejung, sorry to bother you during off hours, but we have a situation. A ship brought in a creature from the outer rim. The crew said it attacked them and they want it destroyed. But I looked at the footage and I think it was just scared. Could you come look at it? Of course. Give me 10 minutes. He stood up, carefully stepping over Obsidian. The Vorithix opened one eye. Sorry, big guy. Work calls. Want to come? Obsidian yawned, showing all his impressive teeth, then slowly got to his feet. Where Daejung went, Obsidian followed. It had always been that way. At the sanctuary, Daejung found Dr. Kessa waiting outside a holding area. Inside, a creature unlike anything he had seen before was huddled in the corner. It was covered in sharp quills about the size of a horse with multiple eyes and a mouth full of grinding plates instead of teeth. The crew said it killed one of their members, Dr. Kessa said quietly. But the footage shows the creature was cornered and defending itself. They were trying to capture it for illegal trade. Daejung watched the creature carefully. It was shaking, quills raised in fear and aggression. Poor thing. It must be terrified. Let me try to calm it down. Are you sure? Those quills could... I will be careful. Daejung opened the door slowly and stepped inside, leaving Obsidian outside to avoid overwhelming the creature. He sat down on the floor, far from the frightened animal, and just waited. Minutes passed. The creature watched him with suspicious eyes. Daejung hummed softly, an old song his grandmother used to sing. Gradually, the creature's quills began to lower. Its breathing slowed. That is it, Daejung said gently. Nobody here will hurt you. You are safe now. Outside, Dr. Kessa watched with tears in her eyes. 6 months ago, this creature would have been destroyed without a second thought. Now it had a chance, because one human maintenance worker had decided to pet a monster instead of running away. The Emperor, watching through remote cameras from his palace, felt something shift in his understanding of the galaxy. For so long, his people had built their civilization on the principle of eliminating threats, but these humans had shown them another way. Not eliminating, but understanding. Not destroying, but preserving. It was a lesson that went far beyond animal handling. It was a lesson about fear itself, and the courage it took to respond with kindness instead of violence. In the holding area, the creature finally approached Daijun, moving slowly. It sniffed him carefully, then made a sound like wind chimes. Daijun smiled and offered his hand. The creature pressed its head against his palm. "There you go," Daijun said softly. "See, everything is okay. You are going to like it here. We have good food, comfortable habitats, and people who will treat you with respect. No more being scared. No more running. You are home now." The creature made the wind chime sound again, and Daijun knew it understood. Maybe not the words, but the intention behind them. The promise of safety and care. Outside the sanctuary, the galaxy continued turning. Ships traveled between stars. Empires rose and fell. But here, in this small corner of the universe, something important was happening. Humans and aliens were learning to work together. Predators were learning to trust. And everyone was discovering that the most dangerous monsters in the galaxy just needed someone brave enough to offer them gentleness. High above, in the Emperor's palace, Thralvex made a note to himself. Tomorrow he would visit the sanctuary again. Not as an emperor, but as a student. He wanted to learn from Daijun, to understand this strange human ability to see past fear and find connection. Because if they could do it with the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, perhaps they could learn to do it with each other too. Perhaps that was the real lesson humans had brought to the stars. Not that strength meant dominance, but that courage meant compassion. That the bravest choice was not to destroy what frightened us, but to try to understand it instead. In his small house, Daijun finished his dinner with Jiwan, played with Rusty for a while, and then fell asleep with Obsidian's massive head resting on his chest. The apex predator purred like thunder, content and safe. And across the sanctuary, in habitats lit by artificial moons, dozens of creatures that had once known only fear and isolation now slept peacefully, knowing that tomorrow would bring kind voices and gentle hands. The galaxy had changed, one friendship at a time.